Hi folks, Josh Knight the First here with another episode of Writer Rebuild, coming to you with episode 27 of the series. Let's get right into it. So this week on Kamen Rider Build, we see that we're getting into round 2 and subsequently the start of round 3 here in this new proxy battle for the fate of Toto. Now we see that last week, of course, there was a defeat there. Sento hasn't fought yet, but he's going to this week. We're going to see the beginning of Ryuga's fight, and there's not much to do with Sawatari this episode. He's kind of sent off on an errand, and we'll get to that in a moment. But let's go ahead and start off with the beginning of this fight with the introduction of Hell Brothers. Now for those of us watching at home, or for those people in Japan who haven't had the opportunity to watch the movie yet, it's covered very quickly at the beginning of the episode that Hell Brothers are just a repaint of Bai Kaiser, which was the bad guy from Heisei Generation's Final, this movie war that we just got done with in December. Now we're seeing here in this debut of Hell Brothers proper here in the series that there's that rule that comes along with any toyetic tokusatsu show, in that the first time anything is shown on screen, if it's a new power-up or a new villain or a hero, it always has to win the first battle. Now, normally that would be the case and you don't think too much about it, but here they kind of had to skew it a bit along with the way they're telling the story. We see that Fuwashio, the two of the brothers that is actually fighting in this episode as Hell Brothers, quickly assesses just what he needs to do to go ahead and win in this battle. Now we see that Ryuga as a character has been set up as the person who can keep exceeding their limits and raising their hazard level. So as such, Fu realizes that he can't win through normal means, so he resolves that he needs to go ahead and deceive him. Now it would be one thing if he just defeated him in battle and that would be the end of it, but here we had to add that little bit more to the story, the little bit extra layer of Fu having to appeal to Ryuga's better nature, giving him the story of, oh, you know, I'm fighting for somebody too. If I don't win here, my brother's going to get destroyed. I'm fighting for him. I'm fighting for family. Now, of course, by preying on his better nature, Ryuga goes ahead and throws the fight, doesn't actually put up much of a fight for the rest of this battle. Now, the thing of it is, it's very quickly revealed that this, of course, was a lie. This was just a trick to get the score even between Seito and Toto, now that they've won one battle each. But for that reasoning, I think that makes the characters a little bit more weaker, specifically the Washio brothers. Now really, Ryuga throwing the fight doesn't say much about Ryuga that we didn't already know about him. We see that he's growing as a character, and we see that he relates that to his interactions with Sento. His growth has been because of his interactions with him from the beginning of the series. But with the Washio brothers, when we did have the opportunity to tell the story of, hey, maybe we're doing this under duress too, it turns out that was just a fake out. They're just basic bad guys, which makes me think even harder that we're going to see their defeat very soon in the series. And speaking of better natures, we see a flashback there in the episode of Ryuga talking to Sawatari the night before, or really whenever they were having their training off on Sky Road, about just exactly what it is they're fighting for, and both of them kind of relate that they're fighting for similar reasons. Ryuga tells Sawatari that he's fighting for people who trust him or believe in him, and Sawatari, of course, still fighting for the people that he's trying to support back in Hokuto. Now, the two of them are bonding over this, and it's good that they are, because you want to see that between your main characters, but they also think about what it is that Sento's fighting for. The idea that he's fighting to go ahead and right wrongs that he doesn't even remember is something important, but it's a little bit on the nose. It really could have been brought up, I think, a little less blatantly. Now, that's not to say that they're not wrong. This, of course, is the reason that Sento is fighting, and we're going to get more into that once we get into his battle, but I think that there's a better way of addressing it. Maybe if we had Misora in on the conversation some more, or we dealt with Sawa. But unfortunately, Sawa's still out doing espionage stuff right now, so we're not going to get that. Now, as we were seeing from last episode, Sawa did in fact get the information that Sento had on his new upgrade, which we will see here in just a few minutes in the show, and delivers that straight to Nanba. Now, we see that she might be pulling a double cross here, in that she's made a call to Sawatari to go ahead and do something that requires him to use his Splash driver. My theory being that she must have some family member in danger somewhere, as we see that she's trying to get Nanba to keep up his end of some sort of bargain they made. Now, if this is the case, this will come at a price. Sawa has already double-crossed us twice now. If she goes ahead and lies to the build crew a third time, really that loses any sort of respectability the audience might have had for her for the rest of the series. So of course, with round 2 having been said and done and out of the way, we have to get into round 3 now, which is Rogue versus Build. Now we see here that, of course, Rogue is going to have some sort of an up over Build, in that Build doesn't know that Rogue and really Namba Heavy Industries have the information for the upgrade that he's about to use. But of course, this this doesn't really matter when we see that Gentoku is really still having this battle with ideology here, specifically against Katsuragi. Now, Katsuragi, of course, isn't here to defend himself. Katsuragi is, for all intents and purposes, dead. We are dealing with Sento Kiryu here, and that's the point that Sento himself is trying to make. Now, Gentoku argues that the riders are weapons, and as such, they lead to war. If they exist, war will happen, and war is good. He wants war to happen to get to the goals that he wants to achieve. Sento, of course, is arguing that they are not tools for war, that they're actually tools for justice. But really, it leads into discussion of what exactly is the difference between, say, a tool or a weapon. It all depends on the intent and use of the user. For example, a shovel in the right hand can build a road or dig a ditch, but it can also be used as a blunt object to hit somebody in the head with. It all depends on intent, is what I'm saying. And we see that Sento does remember that conversation with Ryuga in battle several episodes ago about how this isn't Sato Taro's fight, this isn't Katsuragi's fight, this is Kiryu Sento's fight. He's the man that's going to right the wrongs that Katsuragi has done. And even if he has to use forbidden tech to do it, he'll come up with new tech to go ahead and right that wrong, which leads us to the introduction of our new power-up via the full rabbit tank bottle. By kind of opening it up, twisting it, and inserting it into the build driver along with the hazard trigger set to the rabbit setting, we now have this new form that he can access, which is rabbit form, which uses all of the hazard power but has all of the focus that Sento needs in order to better battle Rogue. Now, much in the same vein that Cross getting the power up to cross charge, I imagine it's going to be the same thing here with Build. You can go ahead and say goodbye to Rabbit Tank Hazard. That black form, which looked sleek and nice, we're not going to see anymore because we're going to see these new full color forms, red and blue. Now, for both of the fights in this episode, for the rest of round 2 and of course round 3, again I'm having to complain about the choreography. It's not really pushing the boundaries that I know they can do. It's very basic blocks and hits and things like that. Although when we get to Sento's rider kick, it's a nice little punk out to Rogue, thinking that he's going to hit him. Psych, I got you anyway. Now, even though the kick was successful and knocked him out of the arena they were in, we see that this is kind of a falls count anywhere sort of match, and the fight will continue into next week's episode. And next week we'll see exactly how that's going to go, seeing as Rogue does have that data and he's going to try and use it on Sento, and we see that Sawa is going to reap what she's sown after it's found out that she is double-crossing the build team. So overall for this episode, I see that there's a lot of deception on the bad guys part here in the show, and I guess that's okay to promote the idea of good guys versus bad guys, this very simplistic idea of good versus evil. But in a lot of ways it comes across kind of like professional wrestling, in that the storyline is being telegraphed to you. It doesn't have to be so deep for people to get it and have an emotional response to it. And there's some merit to that. A lot of times you can get just as much feeling from Shakespeare as you can from professional wrestling. In some ways they're very similar, and the same thing goes for Tokusatsu. At the end of the day, we care about the people who are holding the belts, and we want to see their storylines carried out to their logical end. So here, I see that kind of similarity here in the episode, in that the bad guys are blatantly cheating and using whatever means they can, but that means when the hero does actually win, it means that much more to the audience. But those, of course, are my thoughts on the episode. I want to hear what you guys thought in the comments below, so let's go ahead and talk about this. First off, the Washio brothers. Now that we see the fake out about their sort of ties to Nanba, in that they're not doing this against their will, it's really everything they want to do, they're just evil for evil's sake, will they get any development before they're eventually written out of the series or killed off? Secondly, the use of cheating and deception. Do you think it's too much to be used right now, or it's just enough to get the story pushed ahead and make the heroes look better? And thirdly, if the story continues the way it looks like and we get another proxy battle down the road, what kind of stipulations do you think they'll throw into the match? You tell me in the comments below. And of course, during the week, you can always talk to me over on social media. On Twitter, I'm at JoshKnight1st. This has been episode 27 of Rider Rebuild for episode 27 of Kamen Rider Build, the Counterattack Hero. I'm Josh Knight the First. I'll see you guys again next episode.